At the center of the stage stood Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, hailed by many as the media darling of a new political generation. She walked in with confidence, armed with trendy slogans like Build Back Better, Equity for All, and Green New Deal, backed by friendly journalists and millions of social media shares. On the other side stood Karoline Leavitt, young, less favored by mainstream media, but ready to do what very few dare, challenge the entire performance. Right from the start, AOC jumped into her familiar speech. We are in recovery, unemployment is down, jobs are up, and the Biden administration is driving real change. The host nodded, the lights shifted, everything seemed to be going according to script until Karoline Leavitt leaned forward as if preparing for a strike that had been simmering for too long. No script. No fear of the cameras. She looked directly at AOC and spoke slowly but sharply. Congresswoman, who exactly are these achievements reaching? In the Bronx, where you claim to represent the people, crime is rising, rent is unbearable, and dropout rates are climbing. Do those numbers you're citing really reflect that reality? The room fell silent as if the oxygen had been pulled out. AOC froze for a second, blinking in surprise. She tried to hold her polished smile, but her tone began to quiver. We're rebuilding from a broken system, she said, but her words felt like a cloak too oversized, no longer fitting the truth unraveling around her. Leavitt tilted her head slightly, eyes still locked on AOC. You've been in Congress for 5 years. You're no longer an outsider fighting the system. You're part of it. And if the system is still broken, why have those in power like you allowed it to break further? What have you done beyond long Twitter threads and fashion magazine photo ops? AOC tried to pivot, steering the conversation toward immigration, one of her go-to topics in the progressive playbook. She spoke about compassion, humanitarian policy, and how America should embrace diversity. But Leavitt didn't let her ride that wave of sentimentality. You call for open borders, but who's paying the price? American families, especially communities of color, are losing jobs, losing housing, overwhelmed in crowded hospitals and collapsing public schools. Do you know how many legal immigrants feel betrayed because they've waited years, while illegal crossings are rewarded with housing, health care, and free education? What kind of justice is that? AOC blinked again, this time without a smile. That's a national challenge, not just my district's, she replied, as if sharing the blame could soften the blow. But Leavitt gave a faint smirk. A national challenge is not an excuse for local failure. Your voters elected you not to blame America, but to protect the Bronx. And today, the Bronx is unprotected. People there don't need another TikTok telling them to stay woke. They need affordable rent, safe schools, and jobs that pay a living wage. They need a representative, not Vanity Fair's ambassador. If these are the questions the media refuses to ask, drop a comment below. Make your voice heard, because silence is complicity. And if you want more content like this, raw, uncensored, and unafraid, hit like and share. Let's reach our first 1,000 subscribers together, not for numbers, but for every awakened mind ready to speak out. The room grew heavier, as if even the cameras began to tilt toward the truth. But the clash wasn't over yet. The topic shifted to inflation and taxes, and the tension peaked. AOC raised her voice, trying to regain control. We're going to tax the rich to redistribute fairly. No one needs $100 million, while others can't afford health insurance. Leavitt didn't flinch. And how do you define the rich, Congresswoman? Are they the small business owners barely keeping up with soaring supply costs? The family-run laundromats closing their doors because of doubled utility bills? Or the middle-class farmers in the South being crushed by environmental regulations, while tech giants you regularly engage with still enjoy tax breaks and green subsidies? AOC raised her hand to interject, but Leavitt leaned in with a cutting remark. You wore a dress that said tax the rich to a gala where tickets cost $35,000. When you talk about taxing the rich, you're not referring to the tech CEOs funding your campaigns, are you? You're talking about the plumbers in Queens, the nail salon owners in Brooklyn, the ones who don't have stylists but do have bills piling up. AOC clenched her fists slightly, struggling to maintain her composure. Her signature confidence seemed to flicker, replaced by controlled panic. And then Leavitt delivered the quietest, yet most devastating blow. While your constituents stood in line for food stamps, you were live streaming from an artisan cafe in D.C. When they asked about cost of living, you answered with Harvard Kennedy School buzzwords. And when they cried out for help, you told your struggle story on a podcast. But empathy isn't content, it's action, and you've confused the two for far too long. If Karoline spoke what you've been feeling, hit that subscribe button. Every subscriber is a message. Americans are done with theatrics. Be part of the first 1,000 who help amplify this truth. Together, we are no longer silent. From a heated debate between two women, the show morphed into an indictment of an entire system. Leavitt turned directly to the audience and said, "We are being led by people who use Instagram as their primary political weapon. They cry on camera but smile for Vanity Fair. They speak out against injustice, then sign book deals and land Netflix documentaries." With each sentence, Leavitt stripped away the polished media image surrounding AOC, not with personal insults, but with cold, hard truth: rising bills, worsening security, housing shortages, and children falling behind in school. She concluded, "You don't represent the poor, you represent content. And America doesn't need another congressional influencer. We need someone who delivers results." The current climate only adds weight to Leavitt's words. In 2025, inflation still hasn't cooled down. Housing prices are soaring in major cities, and crime remains high, especially in Democrat-run states. Former AOC supporters are growing doubtful. New immigrant families, once the backbone of the progressive vote, are now among the most deeply wounded by the very policies they once pinned their hopes on. And the media? They still celebrate AOC as a trailblazer. AOC isn't being defeated by new slogans, but by undeniable facts. Leavitt didn't need a media stunt. She just needed a stage. And NBC unintentionally gave it to her. In a single evening, she didn't just confront AOC, she gave voice to millions of Americans who feel left behind. You claim to be the future, Leavitt concluded, but the future isn't a tweet. The future is action, it's accountability, it's results. And on every one of those fronts, you have failed. And that's when the audience began to wake up. Beyond the empty slogans, broken promises, and ideological decay, a new American movement is rising, led by people like Leavitt, driven by the forgotten, grounded in common sense, and reignited by a name they tried to erase but couldn't: Donald Trump. Trump laid the foundation. Leavitt is building the future. They are not here to manage decline, they are here to reverse it. To rebuild an America where your zip code doesn't define your worth, where your value isn't censored, where your hard work is honored, and where real leaders stand with you. AOC can keep her viral moments, her magazine covers, her Netflix documentaries, but history won't remember her hashtags. It will remember who spoke the truth and who finally had the courage to say, "We've had enough." America's waking up, Karoline is rising, and the country we love, the one they try to rewrite, is coming back stronger, smarter, and unapologetically free. Join us in bringing the truth closer to everyone. Every single subscriber isn't just a number, it's a voice that dares to look reality in the face. And together, we will not stay silent.